Hello, how are you? Now, welcome back to our learning session. In this particular session, we shall learn about the types of germination. The types of germination. Now, as seeds germinate or emerge in the ground, they usually do so actually in two main forms. So we have two main types of germination. Can you state the two main types of germination? Can you give the names of these two types of germination? Okay, thank you for the attempt. So the two main types of germination actually depends on whether the cotyledons of the seed have actually come up or above the surface or have remained inside the ground. For instance, in this type of germination here, what do we call this type of germination observed down here? Yes? Here, you'll be able to see that if you have the ground level, the cotyledons have actually come outside, outside the ground. So this type of germination is very common in many dicotyledonous plants. This type of germination, because the seed coat comes above the ground, is called the epigynous germination. So this is epigynous germination. The other second type of germination, which we shall see later, entails that the seeds, okay, the cotyledons do not come above the surface, but instead remain below or inside the soil. So that one now is hypogynous germination, as we shall see later. So meantime, let us discuss about the epigynous germination. So what are the events that bring about epigynous germination? So during epigynous germination, or the epigermination is the process by which, or the type of germination in which the cotyledons are brought above the ground level during germination. The cotyledons are brought above the ground level during germination. This is due to elongation of the hypocotyle. This is due to elongation of the hypocotyle. This is very common in many dicotyledonous plants, e.g. beans. Now, what happens during the epigynous germination? So the very first thing here is that the seeds, as we have seen earlier, the seed will absorb water through the micropyle and become solemn, a process called imbibition. Okay. Then the radicle will grow out of the seed through the micropyle. It then grows downwards. It then grows downwards, hence forming what we call the primary root. The primary root is that root where other roots will arise from. Okay, so we're saying the radicle will actually come out of that particular seed coat through the micropyle, and it will grow downwards, hence forming the primary root. The primary root is the root where other secondary roots will arise from. Then, after the seed coat or the radicle has grown downwards, the hypocotyle, this part, the part between plumule and radicle, the part between plumule and radicle will then extend. It will then extend, hence moving, or it actually curves upwards and pushes upwards through the soil. This will protect the delicate shoot tip. This will protect the shoot tip because it will be the very first one to pass through the soil, hence protecting the delicate shoot tip. So as this hypocotyle extends above the soil surface, it will later straighten, and it will actually come, okay, as exposing or carrying with it the two cotyledons, which later turn green and leafy and begin to undertake the process of photosynthesis. So we are saying here that the cotyledons will actually become green and leafy in most cases. And before the plant develops true leaves, these cotyledons will start to undertake the process of photosynthesis. Okay, then the plumule between the seed leaves. You know, the cotyledons are also known as seed leaves. They're also called seed leaves. So this is hypocotyle. So we're saying now the plumule between the seed leaves then begin to grow by extension of the epicotyle, and then it will start producing now the first foliage leaves. These are true leaves. These are seed leaves or cotyledons. So we are saying that it will start now producing the first foliage leaves, which will start to photosynthesize or to undertake the process of photosynthesis. So as these leaves are starting to produce food by the process of photosynthesis, these cotyledons will then shrink, dry up, and they may be shed. And that is the process of epigynous germination. So we have said that in epigynous germination, the cotyledons actually come or are brought above the ground surface. Is it clear? What brings about this process? First, radicle comes out of the micropyle and then it grows downwards, okay, forming taproot where other roots will emerge. Then we have seen that the hypocotyle, which is the part between the radicle and the plumule, will extend or will start curving upward, hence carrying with it the cotyledon. When it eventually reaches the ground, the hypocotyle will straighten and the plumule will start actually to produce some first foliage leaves, and they will start producing undertaking the process of photosynthesis, hence producing food. Then later, the cotyledons may dry up and be shed when this plant is capable of manufacturing its own food. And that is the process of the epigynous germination. So, now we want to go to the second type of germination. But before we go there, let us discuss about the biological significance of epigynous germination. So what is the significance of epigynous germination? What do you think is the reason or the importance of epigynous germination? One, the cotyledons usually have got adequate food supply. But when they are brought above the surface, they may also develop chlorophyll and undertake the process of photosynthesis. Hence, enable them to manufacture food when the plant is yet to make or to produce its own foliage leaves. This will enable the seedling to supplement the food supply, hence making germination to occur. So we're saying that this the epigynous germination is important because when the cotyledons are exposed out, they will be able to develop some chlorophyll, hence carry out the process of photosynthesis, therefore manufacturing food, which will supplement the food supply present in the cotyledons. This occurs when the plant is yet to make its own food. So that's all about epigynous germination. Now, let us now go to the second type of germination. This is what we call the hypogynous germination. Hypogynous germination. So hypogynous germination is the one which is shown in this diagram here, whereby the cotyledons remain inside the soil. That is, it is not brought on the surface of the soil. Okay. So what actually happens in this process? Now, the radicle actually goes downwards, protected by what we call coleorhiza. This will lead to formation of roots. On the other hand, the plumule will tend to grow upward, and it is usually protected by coleoptile. coleoptile. Okay. Then when the plumule, together the coleoptile reaches above the ground, then the first foliage leaves will emerge from the coleoptile. Okay. Hence, forming the first foliage leaves. When these first foliage leaves form, and they start actually undertaking the process of photosynthesis, this cotyledon down here will shrivel, dry up, and disappear. Okay, as the plant is capable of making their own food, and that is how actually what happens during hypogel germination. Let us have a look at that. We have said that in hypogel germination, the cotyledons remain below the surface during germination. This occurs due to elongation of the epicotyle. Elongation of the epicotyle, not hypocotyle as in the cotyledons or as in epigel. So in hypogel, the part which elongates is the epicotyle, e.g. in maize. So what happens? The radicle together with the protective covering or coleorizer grow out of the seed. Let me go back. Look here. The radicle, it is usually protected by, is actually protected by covering called coleorizer. It will actually grow outside the micropyle and it will go downwards. So that part which protects the delicate radicle from abrasion of the soil or from actually corrosion by the soil is the coleoriza. That's how. So I've said the radicle together with the protective covering, which is called coleorizer, grows out of the seed. Then the epicotyle, that is the part of the between the cotyledon and the plumule, will grow out of the coleoptile. So if you look again back here, okay, the coleoptile is the one which will push on the soil to move upward. So the coleoptile actually contains the plumule. So inside here we have the epicotyle. So as the epicotyle extends up there, it is protected by this protective covering called coleoptile. So when the shoot emerges, okay, the first foliage leaves will emerge from the coleoptile. So the one which protects the roots is coleoriza, and the one which protects the shoot is coleoptile. Good. So we have said that radicle together with protective covering called coleoriza grows out of the seed and it forms the roots. Then the epicotyle, which is now part of the shoot, the part between the cotyledon and the plumule, will grow out of the coleoptile and forms the first foliage leaves, which begin to manufacture food for the seedlings. So this usually happens when this coleoptile pushes through the soil to the surface, hence leaving behind the cotyledons. So when the coleoptile reaches the surface, okay, then epicotyle will push or will actually pass out of the coleoptile. Epicotyle will pass out of the coleoptile, hence forming the first foliage leaves. So when the foliage leaves are formed, they'll start to manufacture food for the seedling. Okay. Then the endosperm, which is the cotyledon, one cotyledon will shrivel, that is shrink. The cotyledons hence remain inside the soil, and that is the process occurring during the hypogel germination. So we shall stop there for today. See you again in your next session. Bye-bye. May you have a nice time.